we're going to continue working on one-step addition equations. Today will get a little more challenging because we're going to add with fractions, and the following week will be subtraction equations, one-step subtraction equations, followed by one-step multiplication equations, and then the week after will be one-step division equations, and that would be the end of Module 6. So, continuing on in our Reveal Math Course 1, Volume 2, in Module 6, we are going to go over the vocabulary. And you remember what is a letter used to represent an unknown value? Do you remember? It's a variable. And then what is a number sentence with an equal sign? Is it an expression? No, that doesn't have an equal sign. It's an equation. Okay, and then what is the property we're using to solve our one-step addition equations? It's a hint. What's the opposite of addition? The subtraction property of equality. All right, now let's look at, we have two examples today. Let's look at example number 5. And looking at number 5, we have the variable y plus 1/3 equals 3 2/3. And if you look at that, we know that we have to isolate the variable y by itself. So we have plus 1/3, and we're going to have to get rid of that. So we're going to do minus 1/3 on the left side. And remember, the equal sign acts as the fulcrum. It's where it balances everything. So we're going to have to do minus 1/3 on the right side of the equal sign. Okay, and so first things first, we will get y by itself. Plus 1/3 minus 1/3 cancels each other out, leaving y by itself. And then on the right side of the equal sign, we have 3 2/3 minus 1/3. We have a mixed number and a fraction. In order to do that, in order to subtract these two, we have to make sure that we have to look at the whole numbers. And okay, the whole number 3 is bigger than nothing underneath. And then looking at 2/3 and 1/3, they have a common denominator, which is 3, and the numerators 2 and 1. The numerator above the 2 is bigger than the 1. So we don't have to do any regrouping, and we're ready to subtract. So let's begin. Let's subtract the whole numbers first. 3 minus nothing is 3. And then we have 2/3 minus 1/3. They have the common denominator of 3, so we're going to write that. We know that stays the same. And then we'll go ahead and subtract the numerators. 2 minus 1 is 1. And then the answer, the solution is y equals 3 1/3. In order to check your work, you can always replace the equation with replace the variable y with the value of 3 1/3, and then add, it says plus 1/3, and you can add, and what you find here must match 3 2/3 above. And if that's true, then you can check it off. So in order to add, here we are adding a mixed number with a fraction, and we're going to do the same thing. The whole numbers, look at the common denominators for the fraction part, and yes, they're common, they're the same. So we're ready to go. 3 plus nothing is 3, and then 1/3 and 1/3. The common denominator is 3, and now we can add the numerators. 1 plus 1 is 2. So it's 3 2/3. 3 1/3 plus 1/3 is 3 2/3, and that is true because that's what it was up there. So this is how you check your work. All right, moving on to example number 6. It's a little bit more challenging, and it's going to take a little more time So pay attention. You can rewatch this if you need to, as many times as you want. That's why we're making it a video, and that's okay. So let's look at using the subtraction property of equality to solve this one-step addition equation. We have to first isolate the variable, and in this case the variable is the letter m. And how do we get m by itself? We have to get rid of the 3 3/4, and notice it's positive, so a positive 3 3/4, we have to do minus 3 3/4. We have to do the opposite. So using the subtraction property of equality, whatever we do to one side, we have to do the same exact thing to the other side. So we are going to continue with our equal sign line and write minus 3 3/4 on the right side of the equal sign. And before we begin subtracting on this side, we do have to make sure we isolate the m, finish this. So this 3 3/4 minus 3 3/4 cancels each other out, and we have m by itself on the left side. On the right side, you have two mixed numbers. And again, you're going to look at the whole numbers. You're going to look at the fraction part, and definitely the denominators, and then the numerators. So as we can see, the 7 and the 3, we're ready to go. Bigger number is on top because so we could subtract those. However, we have 1/2 and then 3/4. The denominators are definitely not the same. We have a 2 and a 4, and then in looking at the numerators, the 1 is bigger than 1 is less than the 3. So the bigger number is not on top. So we are going to have to do some regrouping. We're going to have to find common denominators. So there's a little bit of extra work you're going to have to do. So this is where it's going to get tricky, but I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. All right, so in order to solve this, because you have a numerator, a mixed number where the numerator is, you're subtracting mixed numbers and fractions, and the numerator is not bigger, the easiest thing to do is turn these two mixed numbers into improper fractions. And then after you do that, then you can find the common denominator between the two of them. So let's go ahead and do that, because we already know we already know the C method. We learned that earlier this year. So just to review the C method, it's what you use to turn a mixed number into an improper fraction. So we're going to do that 2 times. So let's begin. The denominator times the whole number. So 2 times 7 is 14, plus the numerator is 15. So 15 is the new numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So it's 15 over 2. And using the C method again, we're going to turn this mixed number, 3 3/4, into an improper fraction, multiplying the denominator times the whole number plus the numerator. So 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 13, 14, 15. Okay, so we have our new numerator, which is 15, and the denominator stays the same. Now, are we ready to subtract? Remember, it's minus 15/4. So we're not ready to subtract because why? Correct. The denominators are not the same. We cannot subtract. So this is the next step. We have to find the common denominator. And I'm just adding the fraction bars. And the way to do that, you could use the LCM method, least common multiple, and just find a number that both the 2 and the 4 can go into. That's all you're doing. So to do that, you can do a skip counting method. Okay, and you've done this before, so let's start skip counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, and I'm going to stop because I already see that what the common denominator is. And then this one can be 4, skip counting, and I'm just going to go to 8. So what is the least common multiple that they share? The 2 and the 4 share. It is the 4. So that is what you would circle. You could use 8. 8 would actually be fine, but just know that in the end, when you have to simplify, it's better to go with the lower number. Right, so we're going to use 4 as the common, least common multiple, which is now the common denominator for 2 and 4. And then using the arrow method, we're going to find the new numerators. So then we'll be ready to subtract. So what happened to, what was multiplied times 4 to equal 4? Times 1. And then whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top. 15 times 1 is 15. And then let's do the next improper fraction. And what happened to the 2 to become a 4? Times 2. And whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top. So 2 times 2 is 4. 15 times 2 is 30. Right. So now we have our common denominators, and we have to make sure that the numerator of the top improper fraction is bigger than the numerator of the bottom improper fraction, and it is. So we can go ahead and subtract. So we have to do all that work just to find what m is. So we're almost there, so let's subtract. So 30 minus 15, and if you know your doubles, we know that 15 plus 15 is 30. So knowing your doubles is really helpful because you can do your subtraction more quickly. So 30 minus 15 is 15, and we're going to go ahead and keep that denominator, which is 4, and the numerator is 15. So m equals 15/4. And then if we want you to, you could actually have that as your answer, and you could also change it back into a mixed number. And notice that we did not, because we used the 4 for the common denominator, we don't have to simplify it, but we can turn it back into a mixed number, and that's easy. We're going to divide 4 into 15. And how many times will 4 go into 15? Not 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, so 1 less than 4 is 4 times 3 equals 12, so that works. And then put 12 directly under 15, and then 15 minus 2 is 3. So the way to do that is 3. Whatever's left over becomes the numerator, and then whatever the divisor was, which was 4, is your denominator. So the converting that from 15/4, it will become 3 3/4. These two are the same. All right, so that is how you solve your one-step addition equations with fractions. This was a little trickier, and I hope that you learned something and this helped you. Not all your problems will be this involved, but sometimes you will get something like this. So there are a lot of steps to this, and please refer back when you need to. All right, good job listening, and keep working hard this week. You're almost done, and then you have the weekend if you get all your assignments completed. All right, take care, be safe, bye-bye.